What was on the mind of Kyle Rittenhouse that fateful night in Kenosha, Wisconsin, when he shot 3 different men, killing 2 of them and severely injuring the third? This question is going to be the pivotal question of the Kyle Rittenhouse case, a case in which Kyle has always maintained that he acted purely in self-defense, and his detractors have always maintained that he went with the intent to kill. But what actually was that mindset? How do we get into the mind of someone else? I actually went live recently interviewing Robert Barnes, who is on the legal team for Kyle Rittenhouse, and we decided to talk about this subject a little bit and explore it. I found this to be a pretty enlightening look into what Kyle was thinking at the time and some different evidence we have about his mindset. And it's also a nice look into what kind of arguments Kyle's defense team are going to formulate and make at the upcoming trial. I'm Nick Ricada of Ricada Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. I'm a lawyer. I'm also a legal and political commentator on YouTube and on Odyssey, wherever you're watching. Hit like, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications. Don't miss any videos. And hey, sometime maybe you should check out one of these live streams. But let's go right now to this clip from the live stream. I thought it perfectly sort of details what was going on in Kyle's mind and what the strategy is going to be going forward in this case. Thanks for watching. Peace. Crusader says, Kyle didn't do wrong, but I wish he didn't do it. 17 is too young to kill, and for what? Even if he is innocent, God willing, he will be. Can he get a job after this? Leave his wife at home safely. Let his kids walk home from school. We all failed this, kids. What do you say about that?
Kyle was traumatized by what took place. I mean, this is a kid who'd never been through anything like this. And to really understand him, know that, growing up, it was between maybe I'll be a cop, maybe I'll go in the military, but the main part was maybe I'll be a nurse. And that explains his mindset. He thinks in terms of protecting others. He thinks in terms of protecting people. If you watch it, people who watch, experts have talked to me, and they're like, they were shocked at how long this kid never pulls the trigger until literally it's the last possible second. He gambled with his life repeatedly because of how much he did not want to pull that trigger at all. That's why people are on top of him, grabbing the gun away from him, trying to bash his head in, pulling a gun on top of him before he does anything. And he spent the next 2 weeks when he was in the jail vomiting all day long and all night long because of how the effect of it. So that's who the kid was. And, and that's where John Pierce created this totally fake image of the not true and also not helpful to his defense. But down deep, I mean, the kid's got, is raised by a single mom. Father's been out of the picture for many years. Works double shifts as a nurse. I mean, that's his background. That's who the kid is. That's why they demonized him in ways that, like, even, the New Yorker, they did a decent publication, but it was from the left, so it was always going to be hit. But their title was Vigilante. Nothing about him is vigilante. He didn't do any vigilante aspects that night. And the reality is, if Kyle Rittenhouse hadn't been there that night, there would be a lot more people dead and a lot more innocent people dead, because those people that came there that night were looking to cause harm and mayhem, and they would have been able to do so more successfully, but for the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse came to protect some people that night. He saved a lot of people's lives, as it turned out, by what he did.
Yeah, the crazy thing about Kyle is he acted in the way of a non-stand your ground state, but he's in a stand your ground state. He has no duty to retreat unless he instigates the fight. We have no evidence that he instigates any altercation at all. He retreats consistently throughout the video. He retreats from Rosenbaum. He retreats from Huber. He retreats from Grosskreutz until he literally can't anymore. Rosenbaum is grabbing his gun, which is almost a guaranteed self-defense claim in basically any state. Huber and Grosskreutz strikes him while he's on the ground, unable to retreat any farther because his back is literally to the wall. The wall just happens to be horizontal instead of vertical. Under every single state in this country, if you are on the ground prone, you are immune from the duty to retreat. And Wisconsin doesn't even have one. Huber does a similar thing. He's not prone, but he's sitting. He is not able to get to his feet and retreat further. And Grosskreutz, he approaches with his hands up in a faux sort of nefarious attempt at sympathy for the purposes of killing Kyle. He pulls his gun. Kyle makes a non-lethal shot, which is not advised. He should have plugged him in the chest.
It was high risk. He put himself at risk repeatedly by
Yeah.
waiting to the last possible second to take a defensive protective action. You literally couldn't have waited any longer than he did.
No.
And his first reaction, he's either falling on the ground, being chased. In every case, he's going backwards or on the ground while his attackers are coming at him. Then his first reaction isn't to get back at anybody. I mean, there's people that have been shooting at him. There's people that have been shooting guns in the air right behind him to make it sound like they're shooting at him. And his is to go and try to report immediately to the police. So, nothing about, well, I mean, a lot of people could have been upset about, all what the governor allowed to have happen, deliberately for political purposes, the true outsiders were the rioters that night. Many of those rioters weren't from Kenosha. They weren't from anywhere near Kenosha. They were outsiders who invaded Kenosha, burned down people's homes, burned down people's businesses, burned down people's property. And contrary to what a lot of them were saying in the press and social media, there's nobody that has riot coverage generally. Riots are an exception to insurance. So all these people who lost their businesses, they never get them back. Their dreams are dead, gone forever. This was an assault on Kenosha, and he was one of the only kids to protect Kenosha, and he wasn't trying to do it. He was trying to do the least possible harm imaginable, and that's why he came with his medic equipment and was willing and was trying to help people, putting out fires, other actions like that, for the people that were even involved in the riots if they got harmed. So that's who the kid was. There's been a massive smear campaign because they want to legally lynch him, and they're not going to get away with it.
Yeah, I talked about the insurance thing on a stream I did covering the Minneapolis riots following the taser lady. Because there was a wonderful little white girl yelling, "Your buildings have life insurance, our people don't." It's like, actually, no. Most buildings don't include riots or act of God as coverage. Those are exceptions to it, and riots do not replenish the buildings. She's like, why did the Target get rebuilt in such a short time? It's like, because literally it's Target. It's a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They can expend $2 million to renovate a building without blinking an eye. But every other small business doesn't get that luxury. They can't insure against these things. But it's amazing. I think Kyle did the right thing on that day, and over and over. And this will come out at trial, of course. And that's going to be, I think, one of your strategies or your compatriot strategies for the jury is the entire time this guy is running away from conflict. He is trying as hard as he can to not be involved in this. He is doing everything we want every responsible gun owner on earth to do, which is not shoot someone. And he only fires when it's the absolute last thing he has at the last tool he has in the tool belt.
And he was really the target of a riotous mob, a group of people that were shooting guns in the air after him, that wanted to create mayhem that night, that probably would have killed people, but for Kyle getting in their way. That's the real story, including that admittedly suicidal individual who had just been released from a mental facility, and then before that, prison. The other thing is, you look at all these guys' records. It's probably not a coincidence that who was on which side by comparing records. Kyle had no criminal record. These people have long criminal records.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, Gage Grosskreutz has a domestic assault that should have precluded him from owning a gun. Yes. He shouldn't have even had that handgun there. Notice the lack of prosecution there is an indication of the bias of the prosecutors.
Yep.